Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma and today I want to talk to you about a project I've recently been working on. I have painted a Bretonnia knight for a project called Knights of Denmark. It's a project where this guy has gotten together a whole bunch of Bretonnia knights and then he has asked for volunteers to paint them in the Danish Warhammer community. And I thought that sounded really cool and a lot of fun, so I said sure, I would like to participate. It's completely up to you how you want to paint these models. So I thought, that sounded fun. Yeah, you can do anything you want if it's just a single model. You're not going to be painting an entire army like that. So you're not committing to a whole big long time project. That gives you a bit of freedom. So I painted the knight here. He's painted just in sort of bluish green on one side, and then a sort of pink with the yellow highlights on the other side. Relatively simple color scheme. But what was fun about him was the technique I used, because I used some watercolor pencils for applying the last layers of the highlights. And that was so much fun. I know that you can get weathering pencils and stuff, but I thought, why not just use the watercolor pencils I already have lying around? And these are just completely ordinary watercolor pencils for drawing on paper with, and then you use just a bit of water on a brush, and then you have a sort of watercolor painting. And I thought, why not give it a go and see if these will work out on a model? So that's what I did, and that's what I'm going to show you here in this video. So I start out with my contrast paint, Volupus Pink, and just give it a quick coat of that. I'm not too careful, I just don't want it to spill over to the other side where I want to put a blue paint. And again, as we've talked about many times before on this channel, it's a bit splotchy, but I don't mind, because I'm going to do another coat later anyway. And then I give it a coat of blue, and this is the Talazar blue, also a contrast paint. I like this blue, I think it's very bright and vivid. It works well for a project such as this, I think. Next up, I take the white contrast paint, Apothecary White, and give the horse a quick coat of that. And then further down on the legs and the tail, I also give it a bit of Griff Charger Grey, just to give it a bit of variation in the color. Then the gold I use here is the Retributor armor from Citadel, and the silver color I've painted with is Iron Hand Steel. And then I get out the watercolor pencils. These watercolor pencils are called Derwent Inktense, and Inktense means that they have a very intense color when you paint with it. And I try to do a bit with some pink colors and also a white, and then I use my brush with a bit of water on it just to try and blend it. I'm not completely convinced by this look at the moment. I don't think the white is a very vivid highlight in some way. Then I do the same here with the blue watercolor pencils, give it some darker blue in the recesses to make it look like you have a bit of shadow going on. And then I try to take some lighter blue in and highlight it. It doesn't work too well with the lighter blue colors, so I decide to go for a green instead. This is almost a yellowy green, but I think it looks pretty cool on top of the blue. And then I just use a bit of white to make sure that the highlight is really nice and sharp. You can see the color here is not very smooth, so that's why I again grab my brush just with the pure water on it and smooth it out a bit so that it looks a bit more realistic. I do this from both sides, and then I decide to give it another go with the watercolor pencils. This time I use some different colors on the pink especially. I use some red and some orange and some yellow to do more of the highlights. And I think this works way better than the first attempt I had. I like the yellow especially here, and then I use my fingers sometimes to smooth it out a little bit. I don't want to remove all the texture from the brushes, because I think it looks really believable and realistic on cloth actually, like you have this this fine texture from a cloth instead of it being completely smooth. I want it to look like it's cloth and not plastic, so I think the pencils work really well for that actually. So I'm working a bit more carefully with the pencils in the second go than in the first go, because this time I don't want to smooth it over with the wet brush. I was pretty happy with the original colors I chose for the blue, to highlight the blue with, so I stayed with those, but then just was a bit more careful on how I applied it. Next up, I took some chestnut ink, again from Citadel, and washed the gold parts of the model with that. I really like the chestnut ink, it gives it such a warm, rich color, I really like that. And then for the silver, I washed it with a Nolden oil, just to bring out the recesses in the model as best I could. Then I highlight the saddle and the reins with a bit of Deepkin flesh. It looks almost white here on the video, but it is actually Deepkin flesh, so it's more like a creamy white. I just wanted it to be easy to see these nice details, especially on the reins and at the bottom of the saddle. So I just gave it 2 quick coats of that, to make sure it was nice and sharp. Once I'd done that, I grabbed my matte white from Army Painter, my favorite white color, and painted the horse itself white. This is the last step of painting, because when you're painting with these watercolor pencils, they tend to rub off, so you'll need to give it a bit of a varnish after you're done painting. And I just didn't want too much rubbing off on the horse if I had been painting it pure white. So I waited with that until the very last moment. So this is the last step of painting. I thought about all sorts of different colors I could have given the horse, but in the end I went for a white horse just because I wanted it to look like a romantic fairy tale horse. And here's the finished result. I had a lot of fun painting this model. It was a cool thing to do just a single model instead of painting an entire army for once. So that was cool. I actually had a lot of fun also with the watercolor pencils. I think they work pretty well. They are not very flexible, so if you have a lot of details on a model, I think they would be very hard to use. On the other hand, I do like the texture that they give. I think it really makes the cloth on the horse look way more believable than something I could have achieved in the same amount of time with ordinary paints and brushes. So I do think this was a successful experiment. The one thing that I am perhaps not as keen on with this technique as I am with ordinary colors is that the highlights and the details are not as sharp. I don't think we have as many sharp contrasts on this model. It's a bit more subtle. And I know it's a look that a lot of people love and prefer, but as you probably know if you've watched my videos before, I really like sharp contrasts and very vivid colors. And this model is a bit more toned down, I think. I don't think there is anything wrong with it, and I absolutely will be using watercolor pencils another time, definitely. But I don't think I would ever paint an entire army using this technique. But it was a very fun thing to try out, that's for sure. And after I finished painting it, I went outside and gave it a healthy amount of varnish just to make sure that it would not rub off as soon as you started playing with it. So now there is nothing left to do but to send it to Mads Gram, who is the guy behind the Knights of Denmark project, and then I look forward to seeing a photo of the entire army all in one. So if you're interested in this project, you can follow it on the hashtag Knights of Denmark. I certainly will be looking at this project and seeing how it turns out. If you have a model or a piece of terrain or anything you would like to show off, you are more than welcome to join me at Dyson Demon Showroom on Facebook. I will leave a link to that in the show notes below. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.